Okay, so today we're looking at solving equations algebraically. And this is the lesson that's a really important lesson. We're going to spend a lot of time on this term going into this topic. So there's a few things that we need to talk about first. When we solve equations algebraically, basically what we're doing is we're looking at the variable, okay? We're going to start over here with this one. So the variable here is m. And what we want to do is we want to find out the value of m. We want to find out the value of 1m, okay, not 2m, just 1m. And we need to go through a process where we basically work backwards in order to find what the value of m is. And we need to take into account our order of operations. So what I always do when I first look at an equation like this one, I identify what operations there are in this equation. So obviously I've got a few. I've got this one here, okay, which is plus 4, and I've got this one here, which is times by 2, okay? Now, they're my two operations. So what I say to myself is, if I knew what the value of m was, what would I actually do first? And the answer to that is obviously I'd do the times 2 first, okay? Order of operations says, and let's just remember we do brackets, okay? Then we do other. Okay, other or indices, and then we do multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. These two come in no particular order, but we work left to right. Now, so we know that we would do the multiplication first, and then we would do the addition. So we'd do 2 times m, and then we would add the 4, and then we would have our answer, okay? But when we work algebraically, we work backwards. So that means that the first thing that we're going to take care of is the plus 4. And when we solve things algebraically, what we do, if we look at this question here, okay, it's got brackets in it. What we want to do is we want to expand brackets. So we expand, and then we want to collect any like terms, if there's any collecting that needs to be done. And then we isolate. And when I say isolate, what I mean by that is we isolate the variable. We isolate the variable to one side of the equation, and then we have the value of that variable on the other side of the equation. So we look at our list. Do I need to do any expanding in this equation? No, I don't. There's no brackets, so I don't need to expand. Can I collect any like terms? No, I can't. There's no like terms that can be collected. So I can jump straight into the isolating phase. Okay, and how we isolate is basically, like I said before, we look at our operations and we say if I was following normal order of operations, I'd do the times 2 first and then the plus 4. But because we're going to work in reverse order, we'd get rid of the plus 4 first. So in order to get rid of plus 4, what I need to do is I need to do the opposite of plus 4. And the opposite of plus 4 is minus 4. Okay, so our next line of working is going to represent taking away 4. Now, if we take away the 4 from this side, we're left with 2m, okay? But whatever I do to one side, and we've talked about the sides of an equation, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, whatever I do to one side, I need to do it to the other side in order to balance my equation. So that means I need to also take 4 from this side here. Okay, and when I do 10 take 4, I'm left with 6, okay? And now I have 2m take away, or 2m equals 6, all right? And I'm down to one operation. I've got rid of my plus 4. I've got times 2 left. So what is the opposite to times 2? And obviously the opposite to times 2 is divided by 2. So my next line of working, I'm going to get rid of the times by 2 by dividing by 2. And it's going to leave me with just 1m. But whatever we do to the left-hand side, we have to do to the right-hand side. So I'm going to divide 2 on this side as well, and that's going to leave me with 3, okay? So that shows our steps of working. What I usually say as well is that you will notice that I have 2 steps of working out here, okay? 2 lines of working out. The easiest way to work out how many lines of working out you need is to come back up here and look at how many operations there are in the equation. I have 2 operations, so I'm going to have 2 lines of working, okay? Let's come over to this one over here. Once again, let's have a look at how many operations there are in this. I've got a -7, and then I've got a times by 2 again. Okay, it's very similar to this one here. So once again, I'm going to need 2 lines of working out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the -7, because order of operations would say that I would need to do the times by 2 first, and then the -7. So I'm going to work in reverse order. So I'm going to get rid of the -7 by adding 7. So when I add 7 to this side, it basically just deletes out, it cancels that -7, okay? And now here, I can have a look and I can add 7 to this side, because what I need to do to that side, I have to do to the right-hand side. So 1 plus 7 gives me 8, all right? And now I'm left with one step. So it's times by 2, so I'm going to have to divide by 2. When I divide by 2 on the left-hand side, I get rid of the 2, okay? And obviously I need to divide by 2 on the right-hand side as well, okay? So G equals 4. Now, let's have a look at the middle one here. And in the middle one, if we come back here to our steps, I do have some expanding to do. So my first step is going to be to expand my brackets. So when I expand, I might multiply everything on the inside by what's on the outside. So I'm going to have 4y plus 4 times 8, which gives me 32. Okay, and then obviously my right-hand side stays exactly the same. So now I have one operation, which is a times by 4, and I've got a plus 32. Okay, so they're my 2 operations. So once again, which operation comes first in the order of operations, and we need to work in reverse order, and which one am I going to get rid of first? So obviously I'm going to get rid of the plus 32. So I'm going to take 32 from both sides, okay? So I'm going to take 32 from 80, which is going to leave me with 48, okay? And then my next step of working is I'm going to get rid of the times by 4. And the opposite of times is divide, okay? And when I divide both sides by 4, I'm left with y, and 4 goes into 48 12 times, okay? So that's a good starter, all right, on those questions. So we still haven't taken care of this last step here, which is substituting. It's a really important step. So there's a few things I want to look at here with this one. Obviously with this one, we find the multiplication sign after the brackets. So that means that we're not going to use the distributive law in this instance. So brackets comes first in order of operations. So we're not going to look in there to start off with. We're going to get rid of the times by 2 first. So if I want to get rid of times by 2, I need to do the opposite, and the opposite to times by 2 is divide. Okay, so I'm going to divide this side by 2, okay, which gets rid of the times by 2, and then I'm going to divide this side by 2, which does the same for me there as well. So next step is I need to get rid of the plus 7, okay, to both sides. And in order to get rid of plus 7, I take away 7. Okay, so 11 take away 7 gives me 4. And then I'm left with this question here. So times by 3, okay, and the opposite to times by 3 is obviously divided by 3. So I'm going to divide this side by 3, which will leave me with w, okay, and I'm going to divide this side by 3, which is going to leave me with 4 over 3, which is going to give me 1 and a third equals w. Now, a couple of things that you're going to notice. Firstly, the variable is on the right-hand side of our question, okay, or the right-hand side of our equation. That doesn't matter, okay. However, when you answer your question in your final step, you should answer it so that your variable is on the left-hand side, okay. That's the first one. Now we're going to talk about substituting. So why would we substitute? When would we substitute? What for? Now this is probably not the best example because you would need a calculator in order to do this. You wouldn't, but it'd be time consuming without one. But what you can do is you can substitute back in your answer, okay, to make sure that you got your question correct. So I could rewrite this and I could put 22 equals bracket 3 times 1 1/3, okay, which is my answer, plus 7 times by 2, okay? And if I went through this and I did 3 times 1 1/3, okay, and let's just go through this. 3 times 1 1/3, so that's 3, and so that actually makes 4, so this isn't too hard at all, okay? 4 plus 7 times 2, because 3 times 1 1/3 equals 4, okay? So then 4 plus 7 gives me 11, and 11 times 2 gives me 22. So what I've actually just done there is I've proven that my answer of 1 1/3 is correct. So this is where you would use substituting. Let's say if you're doing an exam and it gives you an equation like this and it's a tough one, you can get to that answer and go, oh, 1 1/3, does that make sense? And you can come back and you can rewrite it with that in there, and you can look at it and you can go, well, 3 times 1 1/3, that gives me 3 wholes, and then it gives me 1/3 and 1/3 and 1/3, and oh, that equals a whole 2. So my answer there is going to be 4. Okay, 4 plus 7 is 11, and 11 times 2 is 22. It's correct. Okay, so substituting is really substituting is really handy if you want to prove whether or not your final answer is correct or not correct. Okay, so we're just going to look at a few more questions, and I'm going to ask you a few more questions within this video, within this clip, in order to make sure that you're right up to date with how to do this. So let's have a look at this one here first. And the first thing I want to ask you is how many operations are there in this equation? Okay, so obviously we've got 2 operations. Those 2 operations are our times by 6 and our plus 8. Okay, they're our 2 operations. So which operation will I remove first? Okay, so obviously I'm going to get rid of the plus 8 first. Remember, in order of operations, going backwards, so I get rid of the plus 8 first. So to get rid of plus 8, I do the opposite, and that is minusing 8. All right, so it leaves me with 36 on this side, and obviously no plus 8 on that side. And now, what is the next step that I do? All right, so I'm going to divide by 6. I'm going to divide both sides by 6. All right, and that's going to give me my answer. All right, so here, divide 6m by 6, we get rid of m. Divide 36 by 6, and it leaves us with 6. All right, so there are our steps there. On to this one. What is the first thing that I need to do with this equation? All right, so the first thing that I need to do with this equation is to expand the brackets. So my first line of working is going to be expanding those brackets. Now, 3 times y is 3y, plus 3 times 9 gives me 27, and obviously we're equaling 57. Now, what's the next step that I need to take in this equation? All right, so obviously I'm going to get rid of the plus 27. So I'm going to have to take 27 from both sides. So here I'm left with 3y, and over here I have to take 27 from 57, which leaves me with 30, okay? And then the very last step is to divide both sides by 3. So by dividing that side by 3, I'm going to be left with y, and 30 divided by 3 gives me 10. Now, we're just going to quickly recap. So, order of operations, you need to make sure that you are following order of operations, however, we're going in reverse order. Okay, we're going in reverse order. You need to make sure you're setting out properly. Now, I don't mind if you need to draw arrows in between your steps, that's completely fine. just to represent what's been happening, and it can keep you on track. Okay, it's completely fine. You'll find that some teachers prefer you to write those steps underneath the questions. Some might prefer it if you write them on top. Okay, it really doesn't bother me what you do, but you do need to show one line of working for every single operation or every single step that you take. Now, as I can see here, and as I said before, a good way to work out how many lines of working I need is to look at how many operations there are in a question. This one has an extra one because we need to expand, okay? So we had one step for the expansion of our brackets, and then we had 2 more lines for our times by 3 and our plus 27, which of course was take away 27 and divided by 3. So that gave us 3 lines of working. Don't forget that you can always substitute. You can substitute to check to see whether or not your answer is correct. So if I come back here to this one, and if I said, all right, I want to see whether or not I got this question right, I could substitute my answer in, and I could do 6 times my answer, which was 6 plus 8 equals 44. Okay, 6 sixes are 36, plus 8 equals 44, and 36 plus 8 gives me 44. Okay, same thing over here. I could put 10 up here, and I could go 3 times 10 equals 30, 3 times 9 is 27, 30 and 27 together makes 57. So we're good, we've got these correct. Just make sure you follow those steps. Come back to this video if you need to watch it again, and good luck with solving your equations algebraically.